Imagine a dusty village in Burkina Faso, where Malam, a local farmer, is wrestling with the daily question, how do I feed my children when the rains fail? Across the dusty road, a small grassroots nutrition program has taken root, surprisingly thriving despite a decade of failed top-down national initiatives. Why is this local effort succeeding where big institutions have stumbled? And what if the secret lies not in scaling up these giants, but in scaling down their control? This paradox, scaling up local power while scaling down outside interference, holds the key to solving hunger as the new millennium dawns. Let's start with the heart of this story, local communities. What makes their efforts so vital and so fragile? Here's where the real grit shows. In a small Burkinabe village, Malam's family still practices traditional farming and food preservation passed down over generations. When aid organizations came with foreign solutions, they stumbled over language and customs. But a local group adapted age-old methods with modern nutrition knowledge. Their millet porridge enriched with moringa leaves didn't just fill bellies, it restored pride, sparking a new grassroots energy that shook hands with government officials. What did this fusion unlock? Think of scaling local nutrition like a tree growing strong roots. Culture is the soil, it's nourishing, unique, and full of untapped nutrients. Projects rooted in culture grow resilient because they don't fight the wind, they bend with it and thrive amid storms. Outside schemes are like saplings planted on foreign dirt, fragile and often doomed to wither unless the soil is prepared first. When communities like Malam scaled up their efforts, their quietly growing movement caught the eye of national agencies. Rather than imposing rigid control, NGOs began supporting this momentum, letting local flavors shape policies. This flip, where big institutions shrink back to empower small actors, turned a forgotten village's food struggles into a national model. The payoff? Nourishment that's sustainable, accountable, and locally owned, a true revolution. The book's core dance, pumping up grassroots might while dialing down big institution handholding. Sounds contradictory? Here's the secret sauce. In 1995, a nutrition program in South Asia showed an eye-opener. When international donors loosened their reins, local groups tailored solutions faster. They switched from imported seed varieties to indigenous crops that thrived with fewer resources. The project thrived not by piling up layers of control, but by cutting bureaucracy shackles. This proved scaling up isn't always about adding layers. Sometimes it's about shedding them. Picture a jazz band. The big agencies are not the soloists hogging the spotlight, but the rhythm sections setting the beat and giving space. They provide funding, training, and connections, but don't dictate every note. This dynamic allows local performers to shine with their own style and rhythms. The magic? The resulting music feels authentic and keeps playing long after the funders leave the stage. As local groups gain confidence and capacity, the relationship between them and national institutions transforms from control to partnership. This shift bursts the old model where big players called all the shots. Instead, it creates a vibrant ecosystem where small programs flourish, replicate, and influence broader policy. The surprise? More local power leads not to fragmentation, but a more connected, responsive nutrition network. One size fits none. Nutrition programs fail when they ignore culture. Here's why culture steers success and how it survived globalization's bulldozer. In West Africa, a project revitalized a nearly lost leafy vegetable, fonio, once overshadowed by imported grains. Elders remembered its role in preventing childhood malnutrition. Reviving fonio wasn't just a health win, it reconnected generations, restored local pride, and made kids willingly eat their greens. This story tells us culture isn't a barrier, but a secret weapon if tapped correctly. Imagine a nutritionist parachuting into a desert village advocating cold salads. That's a recipe for rejection. The book highlights success stories where health workers learned local food, taboos, and preferences, building respect before suggesting changes. This trust-building process is like tuning an old radio. Only when you find the right frequency do the messages get through loud and clear. The payoff is profound. Culturally adapted nutrition programs aren't just accepted, they thrive and spread naturally. They create self-sustaining cycles of learning and growth instead of one-off interventions doomed to vanish. By respecting culture, programs become woven into the daily fabric of life, enabling nutritional security that lasts. A lesson that flashes back to Malam's millet porridge and forward to national reforms. The tricky tightrope. How can grassroots initiatives connect with the big leagues, national govs, and donors without losing soul? The book's tradecraft is here. In Ghana, a community nutrition coalition transformed from a small neighborhood effort to a vocal national player influencing government food security policy. By documenting their success with locals, voices, and solid data, they earned seats at tables usually reserved for bureaucrats and foreign donors. This storytelling turned grassroots struggles into compelling arguments. Local experience became a lever for national change. Donors learned to act less like overseers and more like gardeners, planting seeds, watering, and stepping back to let communities grow. This pivot required patience and humility, but the payoff was enormous. It created partnerships where support was shaped by local needs and expertise, not global agendas, fostering ownership and accountability that money alone can't buy. Networks formed as these empowered groups began sharing lessons across borders, South-South learning in action. This web effect meant innovations didn't die in one village, but sparked new solutions thousands of miles away. The surprising insight? A local project's biggest multiplier was its ability to connect and teach others, scaling impact through shared wisdom instead of funds. Lasting nutrition security isn't a sprint. It's a marathon across time and generations. How does the book say we keep the fire burning? A nutrition program in Mali invested heavily in training local health workers and community leaders. They built a self-replenishing workforce that knew not only what to do but why. When external funding paused, this core team sustained daily operations and adapted tactics to new challenges. This story grounds us. Capacity building isn't an add-on, it's the lifeblood of endurance. Culture isn't static. The book highlights programs that regularly reassess their fit with changing diets, migration patterns, and climate impacts. Think of it like a boat constantly adjusting its sails to the shifting wind. Programs that lock in with a fixed approach risk capsizing, while those that flex keep moving toward nutrition security, even in stormy waters. Finally, good monitoring closes the loop by turning data into decisions. Local groups collect real-time feedback through simple tools, making nutrition interventions smarter with each cycle. This transparency also builds trust among communities and partners, proving that real growth depends on honest reflection and nimble course correction, turning small wins into lasting victories. Remember Malam's village at the start? That dusty crossroads where a millet porridge stirred more than just full stomachs, where local wisdom sparked a quiet revolution. What scaling up, scaling down reveals is simple but profound. Real nutrition security doesn't come from big institutions pounding their drums louder. It grows when they step back, letting communities compose their own rhythms rooted deep in culture. So next time you face a complex problem, try this. Look for the local champions, strengthen their roots, and don't fear to loosen your grip. Because sometimes, less control unleashes the greatest power. Subscribe for more book summaries like this one.